All right, now I want to give you a more visual representation of what we did in code by recreating the exact same view in Interface Builder in an actual Xcode project. So what I did here is I created a UI view in Interface Builder that is empty and that is representing the canvas that we previously created programmatically. So it has a width of 400 and a height of 200 points. And now I want to add and configure the blue view on top of it using auto layout. So first I'm going to add a new UI view just by dragging and dropping it inside. And I'll configure it as a blue view. And let's start by defining actually the margin of this view to the left and to the top, because that's the easiest part here in Interface Builder. So basically this will correspond to these two auto layout constraints that we created here. So we relate the blue view with the canvas, and in fact we relate the leading edge of the blue view to the leading edge of the canvas with a constant of 20, and the same is for the top. So the top edge of the blue view will be related to the top edge of the canvas with a value of 20 points. So how we do this in Interface Builder is just by clicking on this little icon up here, and then we've got these and these things that we need to activate. So these represent the constraints to the nearest neighbors. In this case, the nearest neighbor of the blue view is the canvas that we have. So let's just go and set this value to 20 and activate these two constraints. And we just say add constraints. And in effect, what we now did in Interface Builder is 100% equivalent to this code. So always remember that everything that we ever do in Interface Builder ultimately gets translated to something in code, and this is actually going to be exactly this. All right, now we also see that we have got these red arrow messages here and this red arrow appearing, and this is not a reason at all to panic. On the contrary, it is actually really helpful to inspect because auto layout is trying to tell us something. And remember, initially on the slides, I said that we always need to provide enough information for auto layout to be able to calculate the x and the y and the width of the height and the height values of a frame. Well, how many values can auto layout reasonably calculate at the moment? It can really only calculate x and y because we only have told it about the top and the left margin, but we haven't told it anything about the width and the height of the blue view. So if we inspect what auto layout is trying to tell us, it's indeed exactly that it still needs a constraint for the width and it still needs a constraint for the height of the blue view. So let's move on and provide these values. And because the width and the height are determined in terms of the width and the height of the canvas, the way how we add these constraints is by control dragging and dropping from the first view to the second view. So I hold down the control key, I drag the mouse from the blue view to the canvas, and I say the width should, or here I want to specify the width attribute of the blue view, so I have to select equal width here, and now I can go and actually select this constraint and modify it here on the right side. And if we take a close look at these attributes here, we'll see that they contain the same information as we provided in the initializer here. So let's take a look again at the initializer that we used, or at the constraint that we used to specify the width of the blue view in code. The initializer took two values for the items, so the blue view and the canvas, and for each of these items it took an attribute. So in both cases it was the width. So let's take a look again at the Interface Builder here, and we see that the first item and the view here is the blue view, so it's the width of the blue view. And the super view is the canvas, and it's the width of the canvas. So this contains 2 bits of information, namely the blue view and the width, and this contains 2 bits of information, the canvas and the width. And these bits of information are represented in code right here: blue view, width, canvas, width. But we have more information that we can provide, and this is a constant and a multiplier. and the relation. And this is exactly the three missing parts that we have in the initializer here. So here we've got the relation, here we've got the multiplier, and here we've got the constant. So we can provide the exact same values as before. Relation, we say we didn't care about the other two, we just want to make it equal. And then a constant of 0 in this case, because we want to define the width of the blue view in terms of a multiplication by multiplying it with 0.5, the width of the canvas with 0.5. So if we change the constraint to this, now we've set the correct constraint. And the last constraint that we need to add is the constraint for the height. So let's again do it in the same way. We know that the height of the blue view relates to the height of the canvas. So I control drag from the blue view to the canvas. I say they should have equal heights, but we're going to change this eventually. First, select the constraint that we just added. And then here in the attributes inspector, we can change it. And we know that this time it's going to be determined in terms of a multiplication, in terms of a subtraction. In fact, this is a subtraction where we want to subtract the top and the bottom margin, which are both 20. So the sum is 40 that we need to subtract. So now we set all the constraints properly. So finally, what we have to do is we have to update frames. What's really nice in Xcode 8 is that they added this button here, which does exactly this. It updates all the frames for the current view. So if we tap this, we've recreated the same constraints as before.